everybody. Welcome to Shameless Facebook Friday. Look at me, right at 11 o'clock on the dot. How about that? We definitely had technical issues, which I always do. It's just kind of norm, but we figured it out. This is my first Shameless Facebook Live since before Christmas, and took a little time off for the holidays, and probably gonna get back in the swing of things in February with sex, shame, and relationships, and then mothering in May, and maybe body image for the summer, but just trying to really have these shameless Friday conversations. But today I'm so excited because I just love this woman. She's a good friend of mine, and she's really, really, really brilliant and wise and
okay.
and can really kind of tease out what's happening in our dreams at night and what's happening in metaphor. And of course, many of us probably are having a lot of dreams right now in this unprecedented, for using that overused word, time. But let me just first introduce Billie Ortiz. Hi, Billie.
Hello. Hi, Patti. Glad to be here.
It's always so fun to talk to you. We were talking about what we were going to talk about, and I thought, oh man, we could talk. I always feel like that with you. I mean, it's like an arbitrary close, as Jeremy used to say, when we have to stop the conversation. So tell everybody a little bit about you and your work with dreams, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Well, I've been working with dreams ever since 1996, believe it or not. And I got started. It's interesting because I was watching a marathon of Joseph Campbell lectures. And at some point he says, 35 is the middle of your life, no matter how long you live. And I was just about to turn 35. So there was this urge in me to like go out and find something important to feel excited and enthusiastic about. And so I did a lot of different classes, and I finally ran across a man named Dr. Ron Mesa. And I took a class with him about the I Ching. And then he said, I have this other class you might be interested in. It's about dreams. And I said, okay, sure. That'll be something fun to do on a Tuesday night. So I joined the group and the class, and just everything just sort of unfolded from there. Ron and I actually built a business together and worked many dreams groups together. And I worked a lot of private sessions with him too. And during that time, he told me about Jeremy Taylor, and he introduced me to Jeremy Taylor's books. And I was excited to read those. I mean, everything seemed to click, and I thought, man, this really makes sense. And then I opened up a Naropa catalog here in Boulder, and at Naropa University, and I saw that Jeremy was coming to present a workshop. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. This guy that I'm reading these books of, he's going to be here live and in person. So I went to that group workshop, and it was early 2000. And actually, many of the people who are my closest and dearest friends now through DreamWork were at that particular Jeremy Taylor workshop in 2000. So everything just sort of went from there. I got very excited about Jeremy's form of dream work, the projective method, which is if this were my dream, this dream might mean this or whatever. And it just totally shifted a lot of things for me. And then I had a dream called Dream Camp. And when I had that dream about Dream Camp, Jeremy shows up, and it's a whole bunch of group of dreamers getting away for the weekend. And I got so inspired by this that I had to go and talk to Jeremy Taylor about it. And I ended up inviting him to do dream retreats with me. I ended up calling it, instead of Dream Camp, the Dream Retreats. And I had Jeremy come twice a year for 12 years, and we worked together very closely. And the rest is history, as they say. So now I do a lot of work, of course, now on Zoom. Do groups and private sessions, and I help people learn about how to work with dreams. So that's my story in a nutshell.
And we all miss Jeremy, who passed away 3 years ago. And so it's wonderful that you get to continue on so much of the work that he did, because you work so closely with him. I was so excited. I was at that Naropa thing on Friday night, but I didn't do Saturday. I just did the Friday night because I was always, as a single mom, on a very tight budget. So I just did the Friday night thing, and didn't see you there, but I met you a few years ago at a fair in Niwot and found out that you brought Jeremy here, and I had been working with his model too in Virginia with the Dream Group. So kindred spirits, wonderful to meet you. And Jeff, been quite a ride with you and Jeremy through the years, and I'm just very grateful for, again, the wisdom that you have and that.
Oh, thank you.
Looks like Trisha's here with us. Hi, Trisha.
Hi, Trisha.
So let us know if you're here, and also as we continue to talk today, if you think of a dream image, just short, just a word or two you want to put in the box, and maybe we can play around with that. But what I put in the post for this was that the quotes from Jeremy that all dreams come in the sense of health and wholeness, and no dream comes to tell us only what we already know. And I think my work with shame, I really emphasize dream work too, because shame is in the unconscious and it's nonverbal. And so when we play, I say play, and it's play, but a lot of people think it's work, but we play with the symbolic, the metaphor that shows up in the dream in order to get, because it is nonverbal. And I'm glad you mentioned Joseph Campbell too, because I just actually started rewatching for the third time his interview with Bill Moyer.
Yeah.
And excellent. Really realizing how important that is for working with shame is the metaphor and mythology. And so that's why I really appreciate you, is because you're like an encyclopedia, of metaphor. And, so when we work dreams together, you can really pull on a lot of the archetypal images from mythology and history. And, even though we can't interpret another's dream, as Jeremy would say, in the projective model, sometimes it's really great to have those sorts of metaphors to tease out.
Sure.
So we have Michelle Loveday here from the UK. Hi, Michelle. Is that somebody from your dream group, Billie?
I don't know. Oh, I know another Michelle. It could be no, that's not. And the other Michelle I know is in France, but this is someone who's new to me. I don't know Michelle Loveday.
I would like to have a name like that, Loveday.
That's a beautiful. Yeah, that's
beautiful. We're going to pick your name apart, Michelle. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, I was thinking too, Billie, about what's going on in the world right now, and when I originally asked you to do this, I was thinking, well, we can talk about how our dreams can influence what we want to vision into the new year, because here we are in January and everybody's like, yay, it's a new year. And I'm not about New Year's resolutions, but I do, like you have your vision boards behind you. We usually get together every year and do other way.
Yeah, I know it's like it's not mirrored. There you go.
And create vision boards, and we couldn't do that together this year, but I did one on my own, and I feel like it's just visioning into what it is we want in the new year. And here's the thing, boy, did it start off, everybody was saying, oh, I can't wait for 2021, and now everybody's saying, oh, it's 2021 already, because we always hope for something to be better,
right?
And the other piece that you and I have worked a lot on is paradox, and holding both and so I think the Corona coaster has been both and. There's a lot of paradox going on where good and bad is happening at the same time. So anyway, back to visioning the new year and using our dreams as a tool for that. Maybe you can speak a little bit to how dreams are helping people right now and what's showing up, and just what you're seeing with dreams and visioning 2021.
Well, as you mentioned, the first part of Jeremy Taylor's toolkit is all dreams come in the service of health and wholeness. And if we always remember that, even the dream that seems scary, even the dream that seems frightening, that dream is trying to get my attention so that I pay it, so that I recognize that this has a message for me that's important, that's urgent. So one of the themes that I have seen consistently, I would say, from the time that the pandemic started, maybe a few months right before it really hit, is catastrophe that ends up being creation. And one of the most striking examples I can think of, and I'll just do this really briefly, the dreamer is lying in her bed, and she hears a sound of what she describes as an avalanche or an earthquake. She hears this rumbling, and the rumbling creates all of this debris that hits her on her abdomen, and rocks and soil and everything. And then she looks down and she realizes that all of the debris has now sprouted these beautiful little pine trees and flowers. So
Mm,
there's some message in there for me in my version of that dream of, yes, maybe it's going to look like everything's going to tumble and everything's going to crumble around me. However, from that, something beautiful is going to be born. And I think if we keep that image in our mind about whatever destruction we might be experiencing now, will ultimately
mhm.
come into rebirth and new growth. And that certainly is a paradoxical image if it were my dream, because it's like, so a lot of times the dreams will frame um, massive transformation and change in the form of something that seems cataclysmic,
Mhm.
um, a tidal wave, an earthquake, fire, whatever it might be, in order to illustrate how um, you know massive the change is going to be. It's like a whole new world.
Mhm. Mhm. And it's scary, I always say, when people have nightmares, they're terrified, and dreams aren't literal. And that's the most important part, right? To remember is that it's not literal, because we take it literal, like, well, this
Yeah,
is going to happen. There's going to be a volcano. There's going to be an earthquake. And, sometimes dreams are prophetic like that. I don't want to say that that's not true. I do think that, though, the symbolism is always what I'm looking for. Like,
right.
what does that represent? And so it's not as scary. And so it's
Hmm.
interesting working with clients. And when we tease it out like that, they go, "Oh, I'm not scared of that dream anymore. Wow, that makes a lot of sense." And that, because all dreams come in the sense of health and wholeness, right?
So
And something new is going to be born. So I always say, "Wow, yay, death showed up in your dream." And they're like, "What are you talking about?"
that's a tough one for people to understand. When death is illustrated clearly in the dream, it's one of the places we can say always represents extreme psychospiritual growth and change. So, and of course, it could be that someone in the dream I see die, or it could be that I have a dream where I'm at someone's funeral, or maybe I, as the dreamer, die. That's very possible. All
Mhm.
of those are setting up to the place of I need to realize that something's on the horizon of change so drastic that the old me has to die in order for the new me to be born. And so, right, if we take it literally, yes, it can seem very scary, and um, like, I don't want to work on that dream. But those are the kind of dreams that have the most juice, the most
Oh,
information.
yeah. Yeah. And what if we're trying to not die in the dream? So,
Well, that often means that I'm resisting the change. That there's some part of me that is ready to change, but I want to hang on to my, it's like Dr. Ron used to say, he had a great line. He said, the ego wants more of the same and more of the same and more of the same, because we get so accustomed to our habitual ways of doing things, because it takes effort to change. And if I transform and embrace my creative power, or embrace my uh, spiritual energy, whatever it might be that the dream is inviting me to move towards, I have to change the way I do things. I can't do them in the way I've done them up till now. It's a whole new world, as we just said.
and also, everyone in the dream is a part of myself, is the way I work a dream. So, like, if somebody I know is dying, it's a part of myself that's dying. Because I mean, I know that's terrifying. Like, even hate to say it out loud, and I've had dreams of, like, my children drowning or something. That's like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
those are terrifying dreams. But what part of me is this that I have to let go of? But it is hard to step out of that literal, because those are terrifying kinds of dreams.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, because when we're in the dream, it feels real. It really feels like this is happening. The bear chasing me really feels like the bear's chasing me is going to kill me. The guy with the gun seems real. That's why I often encourage people I work with, instead of saying real life, say waking life, because um, it feels real in the dream. It feels just as real in the dream as it does in the waking world. So I can't, it sort of minimizes the dream world if I keep saying, well, this is the real world. And that's not the real world
Yeah.
because they both feel real when we're experiencing it. So there's this sense of, like, for instance, like you're saying, something as scary as, oh my gosh, my daughter, my son, or whatever, I see dead in the dream. It all boils back to projection. So I have to say, what part of me do I project onto my son, or what part do I project onto my daughter? And that is what's dying, not something about my expectations, maybe that I had for the way my kids were going to turn out, something like that, or some sense of viewing our relationship in a different way because I'm not projecting the way I was before. So that, as you said, everything in the dream is a piece of me. So I have to
Yeah.
say what part of my daughter is represented in this dream, and what projections do I have on her?
Mhm.
And that's what I need to, as the dreamer, need to pull back.
Mhm. So let us know if you're here. Thank you, those of you who are listening live. You're lucky because you get to be live and in person with Billy, and maybe share a little piece of a dream. I'm gonna like be self-indulgent here. And last night my dream was trying to get a snippet of it instead of the whole dream. I was jars of jelly.
Oh,
So this physician I was trying to help market. There's a whole lot more to the dream, but
uh-huh,
Julie Tara was there too, and she
uh-huh,
had something to do with marketing this jelly, and I was afraid to eat it, or this jam,
uh-huh.
because I thought I didn't want to mess up the marketing strategy. So I was like, so my little snippet of a dream is jars of jam.
Huh.
Billie
That I
Ortiz.
that I'm trying to market
Hmm. Or a doctor, for a physician.
for a doctor. Okay. Oh, wow.
Help him market, yeah, like
Uh,
marketing strategy for this jam.
do I get a look at like the color of the jam, or is there
Yeah,
is there any specific
it's
color?
like, yeah, it's like a red purple berry something. And there are little jars, and there's a box full of like 2 dozen or
Mhm.
something. And so I'm afraid to taste it or open it because I feel like I need to save it for the event or something. And yeah.
Huh. Okay. Wow. Well, that would be one of the, if it were my dream, that would be one of the first places I would start, is why do I deny myself tasting it? If I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
marketing it, I have to know what it tastes like. I mean, I would hope that I could stand behind my product, if I knew what it tastes like. So there's something about it's in what comes up for me, um, some sort of denial of pleasure, some kind of a denial of direct contact. I mean, marketing is hard, as we know. It's something that just seems like you have to do it constantly. It's like no matter how long you've been doing your business or whatever, it's like always, sending out notices and reminders and letting people know. So there's some sense of what I habitually do for marketing myself, or I need to somehow be more directly in contact with it, taste it. That's what comes to me. Like,
That's quite good. Yeah.
be able to actually feel what God, how can I sell it to others unless I know what it tastes like? Would be the question.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, and I was modeling for our viewers. If anybody else has a little piece, I mean, there's so much more to the dream. I would maybe
Oh, yeah.
I can talk about it later because there was other marketing things too that we were doing. It was pretty complex, but the jam was one part of it. So, does anybody have like one little piece that they want to mention about a dream snippet that we can see what Billie has to say in her imagined version of that snippet? Come on,
Well,
somebody.
and well, we see if anybody wants to share anything. But the colors too. Red for me has a lot to do with passion and a lot to do with life force energy. Um, and then purple is a really interesting one. Is it like a deep purple or a lighter purple? What does it seem like in the dream?
Well, like if you put blueberries and strawberries together.
Uh-huh.
That's why I couldn't really like get a berry color because it was a deep, rich,
Yeah,
purplish red berry color.
right, right. Wow. So see, that just feels to me kind of like this, yeah, passionate. Uh, every time I think of berries, it's just like the minute you put it in your mouth, it's like your whole mouth, it just sort of all your taste buds explode. So there's some very uh condensed, and also I think of jellies and jams as being a condensed version of something. Kind of like it's so different than taking a fresh berry. So there's something that has uh, it's deep passion and life force energy that's compacted into something that I'm ready to offer. But I need
Well,
to taste it too.
what just came to me was the whole idea of berries as antioxidants and
Oh, that's true.
what's going on now with the virus. How we can strengthen the immune system.
Hmm.
And then there's also the sugar in it, though. It's the thing like,
Yeah,
sugar's not good for sugar's
right.
not good for the immune system, but it's a dream, so it's not literal. So
Hmm.
it could be like the sweetness of life with the immunity, the ability um, to be healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Well, see, that's an example of also how dreams are so multi-layered and multi-dimensional. And that's why we end every dream with let's bring this to an arbitrary close because there's no way that we've reached to the complete depth of the dream. There's always going to be more that unfolds. And every little detail of a dream is multi-layered like that. So as you mentioned, there's the health layer, there's the work in the world layer, the right livelihood and all that. There's a personal uh, relationship level. There's all kinds of different levels always with every symbol in a dream.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love working with dreams because of that. It is multi-layered, and that's why, you always say it's good to bring it to a group. And I know I did the dream group in Virginia before I moved here, and we used Jeremy's model.
Hmm.
I was resistant because I really feel like we can't interpret anybody else's dream because it's so personal. But then I realized the value of being in a group and because we're bringing things up from the unconscious, and so the other group members help us kind of maybe access some things we wouldn't have consciously thought about. And again, Jeremy talks about the aha. You might want to
Hmm.
talk about that. You might want to talk about that, like how
Sure.
we can't interpret anybody else's dream, but
Hmm. Right.
we take it.
So there's another piece of the dream work toolkit that says, only a dreamer can say for sure what his or her dream means. And speaking of paradox, there's another part of the toolkit that says, no dream comes to tell us just what we already know. So it's like I'm dealing with things that I know about myself, but I'm also dealing with things that I don't know about myself. So the aha response is what we're looking for from any dreamer. So whenever someone shares a dream, our only um, choice, our only way of dealing with the dream is to be able to have that imagined version of it ourselves. We weren't there when the dream took place. Ron used to say, filmed live and in person in your own psyche. So there's this, so the dreamer has the experience, and then they have to share it with the group, or the dream worker. And so all we can do is imagine it for ourselves. It's like if you told me a story of your vacation or whatever, I wouldn't know exactly what happened, but I would have an imagined version of it. So when we work with someone else's dream, we when we preface our statements with "if this were my dream" or "in my imagined version of this dream," I might think, or I might feel, or whatever, as the dreamer. That's our way of taking of experiencing the dream and seeing it from the inside out. And then when we make the comment, and the dreamer has the aha of like, oh wow, that really resonates for me. That could certainly be it. The fact that I made that comment means that it resonates for me too. So that lets the work go both ways. It truly becomes transpersonal in that sense, because everybody is experiencing the dream for themselves, and they have their own way of looking at it, and what resonates for them or doesn't resonate. The dreamer is the one, though, that gets the final word. um, it's very pointless, I gotta say, to ever argue with anybody about what their dreams might mean, because it really is a very personal experience. So anytime anybody shares a dream, they're sharing a very private part of themselves. And it's also universal at the same time. So that's where we go into paradox again, because I see universal themes constantly from people from all over the world. And that I find that so fascinating. How is it that we all dream in similar symbols? How is it that we all dream, for instance, like a lot of people dream about, oh, I have this baby, and I don't even know why I had this baby, and I forgot to feed the baby. I forgot where I left the baby. I thought I had the baby, but I left it in a room somewhere. And so that's a very common theme. So generally speaking, that often has to do with something I'm birthing into the world as a new business, or a new idea, or a book, or whatever it might be. There's something I'm birthing into the world that's going to require my constant care and attention. So the dream that says I've forgotten the baby might mean that I've shelved that particular project for a while, or I've put that away, and the dream is coming to remind me the baby wants to be fed, the baby needs help, the baby needs attention. So those are the kind of things that can be similar themes that run, archetypal themes that run across all cultures. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? How that collective shows up. I don't think I ever told you, when I was in my first seminar for my doctoral program, I had a dream that I was literally almost like a real birth baby. And I was like, whoa, again, no dream comes to tell you only what you already know, but it was pretty obvious that I was birthing this new baby. So a very vivid dream
So
about
you like labor pains and everything going
placenta and the whole.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I have 4 kids, and so every time I dream about having a baby, I'm like, wait a second, I've got enough kids, or I've got other birthing baby dreams too.
Right.
But
Right.
that was so vivid and clear.
Yeah.
That was my new baby.
Right.
So I'm wondering if Michelle Loveday is still with us, because I know we've got a few people watching, and I don't know if she's still there, but she was saying she was new. So I guess she doesn't know either one of us, but are you still here? I guess she's not, but thanks for joining us the time that you did. Does anybody have a little dream snippet? We've got a few viewers here that they, maybe we could toss out into the dream bowl. So yeah, I think these are, what was the quote that came to me? These are the best of times, and these are the worst of times right now. And talk about paradox. I mean, there's a lot for people right now. There's a lot of fear. And so again, if we can look at our dreams not literal, hopefully that they will help our fear, even if they are pretty scary, like we were talking about earlier. I think that's really, how do we ride the wave of what's going on right now, Billie? It's hard.
Well, you just mentioned birth, and that's another one of the big paradoxes of life. birthing a baby is painful and messy and,
Mhm.
you know, like out of this world, monumental, of course. So I think if we look at what we're going through right now with the pandemic and the continued restrictions and lockdowns and the current political climate and social unrest, I think if we look at it as a birth, um, it might help us to change our perspective. There's 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 a lot of things coming out of the shadow too, which we've always kind of known were there. And I'll talk a little bit about the shadow. For a lot of people may not know exactly what that means, but in our dreams, so often the scariest, most frightening characters, the most repulsive characters, are the ones that have the most energy contained within them. And to quote Jeremy, it's the shadow holds behind its seemingly unredeemable face the very thing I need. So the nightmare that I have, or the frightening example of something that's happening in the dream, that's really where I need to focus my energy. Because the dream, again, is not going to come to tell me just what I already know. Very rarely do they come and say, "Hey, that's great," attaboy, I mean, sometimes they do, but most of the time it's like, there's more, and here's an example of what else can be birthed. So the shadow, I think what we're experiencing currently in the United States is an example of the shadow coming out into being visible, and it's frightening for all of us. We always knew it was in there somewhere, and now we're going. It's like right in our face. So looking at it from the perspective of a waking dream, that's the only way things get healed, is by looking at what we don't want to look at.
Yeah.
Um, One of my heroes, Marie Louise von France, she would often had a quote that said, that dream you don't want to write down, that dream you don't want to look at, that's the dream that will transform you the fastest. That's the one that will change it. So we're right now, I think, looking at things we don't want to look at, and facing things that are frightening. And the only way things change is by, accepting that it's there and finding a way to transform. And I think we're all learning about taking responsibility too for our actions in the world as well, and how our actions influence the collective.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you talked about that, because I do think that shadow is just such an important piece to look at, because when I think about, what happened at the Capitol building and all the school shootings that were going on before the pandemic, and, all the emotion behind that, like, we talk about guns and dreams being unexpressed anger, right? And so what are people so angry about that they're going to go into the schools and shoot, or go into the Capitol building and cause that much destruction? What is underneath? What is in the shadow
Mm-hmm.
that creates this expression? That's the part that, I feel like we haven't looked at, because emotions were considered unpleasant emotions we were talked out of. I mean, wasn't that
Right.
long ago that parenting practices said, stop crying before I give you something to cry about. Don't be angry. Don't be upset. Just get over it. I mean, I work with so many people right now who have so much shame around the fact that they have feelings that don't feel good. And
Right.
now I think if you don't have a feeling that doesn't feel good, then that's a problem,
Right.
rather than feeling good. I should be able to I should be able to deal with this pandemic. I should be able to go out and take a walk, and I should be able to get on my Peloton and be okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, you can do those things. And again, the
Right.
paradox that this is collective grief.
Right.
This is emotional stuff that has been living in the shadow. That's why I wrote my book, The Shadow of the Too Good Mother Archetype, because nobody wants to talk about the shadow of mothering, because mothers are supposed to be perfect and good.
Mm-hmm.
There's always both and, back to the paradox. So I'm so
Right.
glad you brought that up. And I feel like there's so much of this collective shadow that's being expressed with no container and no
Right.
ability to really talk about how do we integrate those intense emotions that have gone underground into the shadow? I think that's all brand new, hot off the press stuff. And our dreams are a great way to do that. And like you said earlier, it's very personal. This work is very intimate, and you create a very safe space for people. It's all confidential, and you really hold, and that's what we all need, is a container, a way to hold these emotions that are coming up in our dreams. Deepak Chopra says people think the shadow is the opposite of love, when actually it is the way to love. And when we really, really shine a light into these parts that we don't want to feel, it really is what the world needs right now, right?
Yeah, it's well, and here we go with that word again, monumental and unprecedented, and all these words that we keep hearing. I think our complacency has been rattled. That's the way I'll put it. I mean, in my version of it, in my version of this waking dream that we're in, the complacency around how first of all, with the pandemic, I think that was something that was warned by many people before it actually hit, because we travel so quickly, continent to continent, and so many different versions of how we expose each other through that. And I think that complacency of realizing, oh, you know what, the virus doesn't choose based on any of your background or anything. It's like, if you're human, you're susceptible to this, and so that it's sort of a unifier in that sense. And there's this idea of, you know it doesn't matter how much money you have. I mean, well, I guess some people get different medical care, I should say, but there's this sense of, like, it really is a great equalizer. And I think it brings us more into the awareness of how connected we really are. Everybody has to breathe, and we're very much. I mean, I keep thinking about this. We're very much wired for community, and in fact, that is something I continue to see in dreams right now, about people uh, in the dream going into a community, going into a gathering, being with others, and then all of a sudden there's that fear that will come over in the dreamer. Oh no, nobody's wearing a mask, or oh no, everybody's too close to, so all of this social distancing and the masks and everything have entered into the collective unconscious. So there's this, so that's the first thing that I would say for me, that I've seen collectively, is there's this understanding that this is here to stay. We're going to have to figure out a way to deal with it, and we're going to have to become more aware of how we are all one. And it's always been that way, but we're just reminded of it more through this virus.
Right. And to me, it's an invitation to really look inside at what is important, and not, social status or money, or, where you live or what color you are. It's like what's inside of us, which is our heart and our connection. And, as the Dalai Lama says, kindness is my religion. How can we be more kind? And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in these external goals, we've really forgotten.
Right.
Passion, which is what, again, you say about imagination. And I love that. And, sometimes people in my field feel like imagination is a scary realm to go into, because it could borderline psychosis, in a sense that we have to stay really in the logical, practical world. But yet imagination, and this is why I'm so interested in doing more work with dreams and metaphor in my shame work and Joseph Campbell, because that's the only way we can do something different, is to imagine it. And so to use our imagination to create a new story that's never been written before, because obviously things aren't working right now. I mean, I saw Jane Goodall, when all this happened, Jimmy Fallon said to her, he said, so what do you think causes this virus? And she said, it's when human beings don't respect nature. This is what happens, and this is very dangerous. And so it's like, how do we find that sense of respect for ourselves and other people? And what does that even look like? Because it's, in this whole patriarchal power and control model of might meets, makes right, and force and get what you need, we're not respecting each other. And so I think
Yeah.
that's the implication of going inward and going low. And
Hmm.
so dreams are a great way to do that, which is why I really wanted to have
Yes.
this conversation with you today, because I think it's so important.
Well, yes, dreams are always, as we said, they always come in the service of health and wholeness. If we keep that in mind, um, that means that every dream is important. Even the one that I might think is just a short little silly dream. I mean, like I worked a dream yesterday in the group that, it's very simple. It was like, the man goes into a coffee shop and his friend happens to be the barista behind the the counter, and he just feels like at peace and in community in this coffee shop. And it was amazing what we got out of that dream. And it seemed like, such a, tip, this guy goes into a coffee shop. What's so amazing? But there were so many layers to it, especially because the person behind the counter was a friend. So that brought up, what projections do I have on my friend, and how do I feel about coffee? And it's really interesting, how many people have conflicted feelings towards coffee. I mean, it's something you wouldn't think. But anyway, a lot of people say, well, I drink it, but I know it's not good for me, that kind of thing. So um, there's always going to be the personal layer for the dreamer, and then there's also always going to be that collective layer as well. How do we all relate to this dream
Hmm.
individually and collectively? And I think that's one of the things that keeps me going personally, is that it does feel, again, it's a great unifier. Because people don't regularly talk about their dreams, I don't think that they realize how frequently they are dreaming similar themes to other people. Like I said, with the baby, that's a very common thing. But unless I talk about my dreams, how would I know that? How would I know? I would think that I'm the only one that had that dream about the baby. Another
Right.
big one is losing the car. A lot of people dream
Yeah.
about losing, don't know where I parked my car. I can't remember where I parked my car. And a lot of times one of the ways I work is I first look at, what did the dream take away from me? And if the dream took away the car, if the dream takes away the baby, whatever, uh, like sometimes it's clothes, the dreams that I don't have any clothes on in the dream. So what did the dream take away from me? And how do I relate differently in the dream now that I don't have that car or the clothes or whatever? Because the dream is putting me in a situation to where I have to now come up with a new way of responding, again, breaking free of those conventional ways of doing things. I think it's a big part of what our dreams do for us often.
Hmm. So whatever we've lost or has been taken away in the dream gives us the space for something new. Is that what you're saying? That.
And it gives me an opportunity to figure something, to find a new way to respond. In
Hmm.
other words, I can get in my car and I can go my traditional way of going back to home, or I can in the dream I forget where I parked my car. So now all of a sudden I have to walk through a neighborhood I've never been in, and I might get a little lost, or I might encounter people I wouldn't have encountered if I was in my car. So
Hmm.
the dream pulls me out of my usual way of doing things so that I can expand and grow.
Hmm. Hmm. So I want I want to talk about imagination and compassion,
Mhm.
because I know that's why you do the work that you do.
Right.
Um, so I don't know if you want to tell us that now, or you want to tell us what you do and what you got coming in your website and all that stuff, and then finish. We can finish
Mm. Okay.
why you do what you do as a.
Sure. Oh boy. Well, first of all, I'll tell a little bit about my business and what I offer. My website is wakeuptoyourdreams.com. There you'll find a lot of interviews, and there's an interview with Journey to for a while, and it's connected a lot of people who are former students and colleagues of Jeremy. So I invite people to watch that. It's a 2-part interview. It's kind of after hours. We're very tired, but but we talk a lot about dreams and dream work and why we do the work we do. That's one of my most treasured things, is that intimate conversation between Jeremy and I. And then I offer dream groups several times a month. I have a daytime group that meets on the second and fourth Thursday of every month, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And then I have an evening group that meets on the first and third Tuesdays of, again, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And it's always a wonderful group of people. And of course, we're meeting by Zoom. And so we have people from all over, at really all over the world, because we have people that join from France and another woman that joins sometimes from Ireland, and all different states across the the country. So it's very an interesting group of people. And they so that's what I offer. I also offer private sessions. So if you go to my website, wakeupyourdreams.com, there's a place there to sign up for all that. So imagination and metaphor and compassion. This is something that when I did the dream retreats in person, I would often close with this, because it really is truly speaks to my heart of why I do the work. And the big reason is because I think it's important that we all continue to study and learn to speak in the language of metaphor. It's the language of the heart. It's the language of poetry and sacred narrative. The language of metaphor helps us to expand and develop our imagination. And if I don't develop my imagination, and I don't embrace that, then I'm not going to be able to express my compassion as deeply as I can, because if I can't imagine being someone else, I'm not able to have compassion for them. So the reason I do the work I do, and I spend so many hours making myself crazy trying to make things work, is because it is, again, a way to unify us all and it is a compassionate practice ultimately.
And you always say, if we lose our imagination, we lose our compassion. And if we lose our compassion, we get into the realm of not being kind.
Right. Yeah, if I don't have if I can't imagine being someone else, then I'm not able to have compassion for them. So that's the ultimate bedrock of the work, is that, that's why, if it were my dream is so important too, the projective method, because I'm truly imagining myself in someone else's shoes. And I know that this is true for you probably as well. Many of my good friends, because if we do this work very often, it's when we're talking with our friends, we'll say, if it were me, I would do that, instead of saying, well, I think you should get a new car. Or, I think quit your job, or whatever it might be, because that's a very accusatory tone. And so it's I think doing this practice for as long as I have, it tends to be the way to approach anything when you talk to someone. If this were me, in my imagined version.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too, because a lot of times people think, well, you're turning it back onto you, but you're not necessarily. You're imagining yourself in that experience and not giving. I mean, in group work, we talk about no crosstalk. Don't tell people what to do. Don't say, well, I think you should, blah, blah, blah. Instead, this whole saying, well, in my experience, or, this is what I've experienced. This is what this means to me. You're not being narcissistic. You're having compassion and you're sharing empathy, and hopefully the person you're talking to gets an aha from that.
Right. And because we have no choice but to imagine it as ourselves, as being in that situation, or having that dream.
Well, and here we go. I could talk to you forever because it's getting ready to close. But another part came up to me for me is this whole idea of people trying to understand another person's viewpoint. Like, why does do that? Well, I don't understand why he can't just get what I'm saying. I don't understand why does he have to do that? It's like
Right.
we cannot really ever understand another person's experience because it's not ours, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so oftentimes I see that with clients. It's like if only I could get this person to change or to understand or to just be different because what this person's doing isn't working. Um, and the whole idea is we can't. I mean, that
Yeah.
person is going to do what that person does. And I think that's a big lesson is that we can't really ever understand another person's experience. We can only understand how we're experiencing that person's experience.
Yeah.
Or what experience we've had similar to. So
Yeah.
anyway, on that note, go ahead.
No, it's so important. I was just remembering that that's how Jeremy Taylor started working with dreams, is because he was working in an organization that was trying to abolish the racism that was taking place within this volunteer organization, and until he could get people to sit down and really feel them, that they were in someone else's shoes. And the best way he could find to do that was through dream work. And as soon as dream work came into the picture, all of the problems, many of the problems that they had started solving.
I am so glad you shared that story. I think it's so important on many levels and layers, like dream work is, multi-layered. But the idea that, so many people think dream work is just like fluff, and Jeremy, was scratching his head going, what are we going to do to really affect change here? And let's just try this. And it actually helped. And so it really was a big inspiration in his passion for bringing dreams. So I think that's really important, especially coming to a close here, to say that dreams aren't just like something we do at night that are just there and we don't understand them or whatever. We can talk about them. They really can create deep change, and they're messages from the unconscious, personal and collective unconscious. So
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
yeah. Well, should we come to an arbitrary close, Billie?
I think so. Yeah.
Thanks so
It's
much for being with me today. I just love talking with you, and I think you just have so much to share. So I would encourage people to go to your website, wakeuptoyourdreams.com, and sign up. I think if you've never done it before, a group with Billie, the first one's free, right? Should I say that? Is that still the case?
Sure. That can be if you say Facebook Live and write me an email, sure. We can there's a way I can put a coupon in there, and so just say Facebook. If you type in Facebook Live in the coupon area, your first will be free.
Okay. And like I said, hopefully we'll get my Shameless Facebook Friday Live up and running again in February. Oh gosh, here we go. I'm not going to close. This is Billie and I do this. My recurring dream in the past month or so has been I'm at an Airbnb on vacation and I need to stay longer. It's like I can't leave. I can't go back. And not that I've been anywhere on vacation. I've been in my house during the pandemic, but it's this whole idea of I really need rest. And I think we all need rest right now. I think a lot of people are saying how tired they are.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's really important to pay attention to that. So I'm kind of slowly easing back into the Shameless Facebook Friday Lives, but I've got some great guests coming up, and I look forward to being back with you, but it won't be every week. I'm going to be doing every 2 or 3 weeks starting in the middle of February. So just stay tuned. And Billie, again, thank you so much for being with us, and
thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
and we'll hopefully get your website in the chat room here.
Yeah.
And people can contact you.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks so much, Patti.
Bye.
Bye-bye.